Welcome back. The former governor of Gombe State, Danjuma Goje, has alleged that military personnel in the state barricaded his house, thereby denying him access to his polling unit. He told Channels Television that as at 4 p.m. he was unable to vote, along with members of his family.
House in Kashiri village now. The army has come in large number and taken over the place. For whatever reason, we don't know.
Were you able to?
I'm not aware of anything I've done wrong. All I did was to come to my village in the morning, went to the polling booth and got accredited, came back to our house. When the time came for real voting, I went to vote. After I voted, I came back to the house. And then they came and took over. And now I'm under me and members of my family. Of course, we have come in large number for voting. All my relations, my children, grandchildren, my wife, everybody were all under siege completely by the army here in my village, Kashiraka, in Gombe State.
Over now to Yobe State in Nigeria's northeastern region, where voters waited patiently to be accredited while security officials screened and searched eligible voters who queued in an orderly manner for the voting process. The scorching sun did not deter them as they waited to be verified. Quite unlike in some areas, the voters had little or no problems with the card readers. Also, in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno, the card readers appeared to be functioning properly as voters gathered around electoral officers for accreditation with ease. And in Kaduna, northwest Nigeria, the Vice President Namadi Sambo was earlier in the day accredited smoothly by the card readers in the midst of a crowd of other eligible voters. In the meantime, the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. James Entwistle, has been speaking on the presidential elections. He told our correspondent in Abuja, Lanre Lasese, that Nigerian voters are patient.
Well, I came over here to the compilation center just to say hello to INEC, to lend my support to them, although, as you pointed out, not much is happening yet. But I've been around FCT today, I've been to a few polling places, and I'll tell you, my overwhelming impression is how impressed I am with the Nigerian people, how patient they are to participate in a democratic exercise. The fact that they are willing to wait patiently in line all day in the heat just underlines to me the richness of the democratic tradition in this country. You can tell Nigerians want to vote.
Okay, but you've also, I'm sure, observed some of the difficulties on the field. So what's your impression about that?
Well, as I'm sure you've already reported, some of the difficulties I saw were election staff showing up late and so on. And I was watching them use the card readers this morning, and I must say it was a very mixed experience. Sometimes they worked very, very well, very, very quickly. Other times, as you know, they didn't work as well. So I understand the decision that INEC has just announced that they will now allow, I think they call it manual accreditation. I understand that. Nonetheless, I think the decision to try and use card readers was absolutely correct. The concept of introducing more technology into your elections, I think, was absolutely correct, and I think they did the right thing. And now, as you've reported, as the situation on the ground adapts and changes a bit, INEC is also adapting. So, no, I've been very impressed with the Nigerian people and what I've seen so far. I've seen the same press reports you have about conditions in places like rivers and so on. I don't know if they're true, but I'm sure INEC and the government are responding very quickly to those reports.
Now, Lagos State had its own share of the men in uniform. How was their performance and the effect of their presence in the state? Our correspondent Yomi Otaigwe reports.
It's no longer news that over 36,000 security personnel drawn from the police, army, navy, Air Force and other paramilitary have been deployed for the elections in Lagos. What may interest you to know is how they have so far carried out their mission of maintaining law and order through the air, the sea, and on the land. Indeed, The police and other paramilitary men were embedded among the people on the streets and during the voting process, while the army, in most cases, maintained a safe distance from the polling centers. Sometimes the security men calm frayed nerves, but at other times they were a bit on the edge. I've been around local council development areas under the Alimosho local government area in Lagos West Senatorial District. I'm talking about Egbedimu, Ijegun, Ikotun, and Ayobo, Ikpaja. And concerning the conduct of the security operatives,
the conduct has been very okay. They are not intimidating anybody, not harassing anybody. We go on doing everything the way we're supposed to do it. So there is no harassment whatsoever. So the area is cool and calm.
I think they worked hand in hand. There is their cooperation is perfectly okay. Because when I came, the policemen were trying to arrange the line, and the soldier people came in, and the place was just okay, and everything was perfect.
For the March 28th presidential elections, the security operatives deployed for election duties in Lagos seem to have scored a high mark for their performance. Another litmus test will be the April 11th governorship elections. Yomi Otaibu reporting for Channels Television News.
Well, it's one of those days when we need to call for a very quick break. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. Now let's just take a quick look. Let's have some analysis about how today's proceedings or how today's process went on out there. I'm being joined in the studio by our political correspondent, Sheun Okimbaloyi. What a day, Sheun. Welcome.
It's been a very long one for observers, for journalists across the country. It's been an exercise that is, I would say that it's very much anticipated by everyone, you know. When the election was first postponed by 6 weeks, the 6 weeks looked so much like 6 years for some, but eventually it's here today and it's held in a lot of the parts of the country.
You said very much anticipated. Did you anticipate the extension of voting to tomorrow?
That exactly we did not anticipate.
Exactly.
But what exactly, some of the things that came into the game, different from what we have seen in the past, perhaps raised the anticipation. The issue of the PVC. This is the first time we'll be using a permanent voter card in the election in Nigeria. We've had 8 elections in the history of Nigeria from 1960 up to date, 5 elections from 1999 up to date. So this election is one election we went into, or we came into, with a voter register that some people would say very close to being tidied. And a lot of efforts have been made by the Commission to make sure that we have sanity on the voters' register.
Okay, let's bring it back to what happened on the field, because you were there. When the card readers failed in certain areas, what was the mood like? What was it like where you were?
It was like a wedding day for some. You know, you know the
Explain.
mood. You know what it looked like is. I talked about anticipation. A lot of Nigerians are looking forward to that day, 7 a.m. The exercise was supposed to start at 8 a.m. A lot of Nigerians have been out at about 7 a.m. waiting for the ad hoc officials to arrive. Logistics became one of a major challenge. Even in Lagos, that you would expect is a metropolitan city, and one would expect that logistics shouldn't be much of a problem.
I was going to ask you about that. Aside from the card reader issue, again, logistics is coming up, late arrival of materials. It always seems to be so. Did you get to ask anyone at all? I mean, any of the INEC officials, etc., why it didn't happen differently this time again?
But with some of the conversation we've had with INEC officials, some of the things that they cannot even explain at the time, because they've not really gotten their reports. You know, after every exercise, they wait to get reports from the field. The ad hoc officials to also file the report and send it on to the office. But at that time when we were on the field, they were asking questions. So what really happened? The reports are not really there. But basically what we have seen is, because you remember, INEC created what we call racks. These are places where they're closer to the polling units at the local government areas, and materials actually with the ad hoc officials sleep at the eve of the election. So, and this is just to mitigate the issue of logistics problem. So, having
did it work
logistic
well then?
it didn't come out very well in Lagos, especially because one would think that in Lagos we shouldn't be seeing such a thing. Don't forget that we had almost 6 or 7 governorship elections from 2011, staggered elections from 2011 up to this time. And a lot of these things INEC has created between 2011 and 2015. But don't forget, we've seen a lot of improvement also in the exercise. If you look at 2011 and 2015, there's tremendous improvement.
But when the announcement came, when INEC gave the go-ahead for officials to do manual accreditation, what went through your mind? Do you see that as, tainting the process somewhat? Do you see that as, changing what we know to be transparent?
But that was a day-saving mode that we entered into, because if we didn't have the opportunity to go into a manual accreditation exercise, it would have been a total disaster. That means elections will be suspended. Don't forget what happened in April 2011, where on the day of the election, Professor Jega had to come on TV and say, look, elections will be postponed. But this time around, because we had to go, and what happened at that time was the issue of the voter register too, that made the commission to say, let's postpone the elections. But this time around, we went into the manual accreditation. Of course, INEC had told us that the voter register had gone through 2 phases of pruning, the AFIs and the post-business rules. But all of these exercises giving us the kind of voter register we have, over 68 million voters in Nigeria.
Okay, let me just stop you there, Sheun. Let's look at what you did earlier today, because obviously you've put it all together. Let's just take a look at how it went with you in the field.
A most anticipated day. The city of Lagos unusually deserted, but well, it is understandable as uniformed men mount roadblocks. For an exercise slated to commence at 8 a.m., surprisingly at the center of the city in Ikeja GRA, ad hoc officials are seen just setting out at about an hour later than scheduled. Few minutes away at Onigbongo Town Hall, voters are already apprehensive as they could not fathom what could have held the officials back. And to some other parts of Ikeja, precisely at Olowu area, accreditation did not start until past 4 p.m., so it has to be done manually, and so voting and accreditation processes collapsed into one. Though it was a sort of piece of cake elsewhere in town, for example in a place like Surulere area where Governor Fashola and his wife cast their votes.
All right, there you have it, Sheun, all that transpired today in the state. But one more question that's on the mind of many people. We've had many tweets about it. Is there restriction of movement tomorrow? A lot of people had said, okay, if the election is going to be extended, can we move around? Do you have anything for us about that?
Well, the information that we've gotten from Professor Jega, and of course, I had a conversation on telephone with the CPS2, the INEC chairman, Mr. Kayode, who told me that elections are not holding in all parts of the country tomorrow. It's only going to hold in some part of Jigawa State, some part of Taraba State, and just a few places in Delta State. So invariably, what this tells us is that if elections are not held in all parts of the country, there will definitely be some movement.
All right, and if you know anything to the contrary, you will let us know.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sheun, for being with us here tonight. Our political correspondent, Sheun Okimbaloye there, just giving us a feel of what's happened on the field and what's happening generally as we continue the general elections. And the main news again. Nigerians have been casting their votes in a turnout considered to be impressive. While some found it relatively easy at the polls, with the accreditation and voting exercise starting on schedule, it was a different story for many others, as problems associated with the card readers delayed the process for several hours. And President Goodluck Jonathan has voted in Otoeke Bayelsa State after attempting the accreditation exercise with 4 card readers. The All Progressives Congress candidate, General Muhammadu Buhari, also voted in his hometown, Daura. And the INEC chairman has extended elections to tomorrow in places where voting failed. The INEC chairman has given an assessment of today's voting process, describing it as not perfect, but good. He noted that there were not more than 350 polling units with card reader malfunctions, and therefore it did not compromise the entire process. He described as a national embarrassment that President Goodluck Jonathan's PVC was not read promptly by the card reader in Otoeke, Bayelsa State, apologizing on behalf of INEC. Professor Jega also confirmed that elections have been postponed in 3 states, Jigawa, 1 federal constituency in Taraba State, and a couple in Delta State. Elections will also continue in Niger State tomorrow. Well, that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. We leave you now with some pictures of how you covered the elections for us through our Eyewitness platform. And thank you so much for sending in all your colorful pictures for the day. Do have a good night.